Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Ham Nation is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Ham Nation, episode number 7, recorded July 5th, 2011. W3AO breaks a 30-year record. This is Ham Nation, episode 7, recorded July the 5th, 2011. And we appreciate everyone being here, and we're going to have a fabulous show tonight. You're going to learn a lot, and we're going to have a ton of fun because we have some experts, big-time experts in ham radio here. And first of all, let's bring Gordon in, our co-host. Gordon West is WB6NOA from Costa Mesa. It's a wonder we got him here because the beacon's coming in from Hawaii, and it's pretty tough to get him away from the VHF stuff. Where you at, Gordo?
Hey, hi, Bob, and all the gang on the East Coast. We're tuned in to the Hawaiian beacon, and listen. That's coming in 2,500 miles away on 2 meters, single sideband, as well as 432, even 1.2. So extraordinary conditions to the big island of Hawaii today on the West Coast. Hi to all of our listeners and viewers.
Wow. And the thing about this, for a lot of the guys that aren't hams, we're talking about very high frequencies. We're talking up where the television frequencies are, a police band radio, way in the world up there. The antennas are only about that long. And it's amazing when you think about that. Normally, if we could talk to each other 10 or 15 miles, terrific. But when you live on the West Coast, they have this ducting. Tell them about that. How's that happen, Gordo?
Well, in the presence of a high-pressure system, it squashes the atmosphere into a thin layer that is about 10 degrees warmer than the air below it and 10 degrees warmer than the cool, dry air above it. And this duct acts like a waveguide, and for about 5 to 7 days, we'll hear the Hawaiian stations pouring in on VHF and UHF, thanks to tropoducting waveguide in the atmosphere.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. We might get back into that a little bit later, but I want to bring our guests in here. We are extremely honored to have two record-breaking amateur radio operators. We told you a little bit about their operation last week, W3AO, and tonight they're here. The two of the guys of a team of about, I don't know, they'll tell you how many, but they set this whole thing up and they broke the record. They broke the record of contacts, and we're very, very excited to have W3LPL, Frank Donovan, and I think Frank's going to be on our left, and Rol Andrews, K3RA. And you're looking at two of the top-notch contesters in the world, and they put together this field day operation, and we want you to let us know how in the world do you do that, Rol? Where do you start and all that kind of stuff? So it's all yours, man.
We start early, that's for sure. Every year, we've been doing this for, this is our 14th year. And so we're getting it down pretty much to a pattern by now. But we start in January getting ready for this. And the secret is we have two clubs. We couldn't do this, I don't think, with just one club. We have Potomac Valley Radio Club, who is world famous as a contest club, and we can draw on them for operators and lots of equipment, especially in the HF bands. But we also have the CARA, the Columbia Amateur Radio Association group, and they are I would say more of a general purpose club and very active. They have involvement with the local fire departments and emergency prep people. They have a big team of satellite amateur radio operators that use satellites that they have set up to take around the schools. And they bring that out for our field day. And they do a lot of the many things that have to be done to make field day work. It's a multifaceted, multidimensional activity, unique in amateur radio. There's nothing like it.
We've got a really nice presentation that you guys put together. I want to bring up a couple of these slides. I think number 2 probably will be one of the first ones that'll help some of the viewers. But we have a lot of people that are listening, and of course on iTunes and everything else. So we'll tell them about that. How many were in the team? How many were in that picture we're showing?
I think there's about 35 all told, licensed radio hams that were part of the team. And then we had about 25 GOTA guests, the get on the air people, the people that came in to operate our special station setup that ARRL has established to let newcomers get on the air. So we had about 25 people there. And then we have the families and visitors and people that just happened to be driving by and people who saw us on the internet at the ARRL site. And so I don't know.
People who handle food. It was really
people
important.
who handle the food. Audrey has been watching us here. She said she thought about 120 people. It could have been. It's a large number.
It was a big number. Great fun.
That's great. Slide 2 kind of gives us a rundown of when you start in January. My goodness. And most of us, we think about field day. We start about a week before. You guys, this is amazing. Frank, you start this whole thing in January with, I guess, getting the proper co-chairs and all that together. Is that correct?
Sure, Bob. But of course, this team has been together for a long time. We're always adding new people, but many of the people who are chairs for the various bands have done this before and pretty well know what it is they need to do. Rol, when was your first field day?
My first field day was in 1959.
Same as mine, 1959.
1959.
So Rol and I and many other members of our teams have been doing this for a long time. And there are certain things we like to do. Rol is our organizer, and
20-meter CW
and 20-meter CW operator. I'm kind of the antenna guy, and that's my specialty. And kind of the way this works is that each person who has some responsibility on the team takes on that responsibility willingly. And it's very clear to them that the team is completely dependent upon them to be successful in that role. So, for example, in my case with the antennas and the transmission lines, I'm kind of expected to bring that stuff out there and that it's going to work. That we're not just going to try to experiment with it and see if we might be able to get it to work. The expectation on the part of the team is Frank is bringing all these antennas and transmission lines out there, and I know before I arrive that they do work.
Wow. How do you do that? How do you do the site selection? I mean, you just don't roll up into somebody's yard. You got to have a pretty big place. Do you have several places you check out, or how do you do that?
That's a very important thing. I mean, we have, 20. We've always operated lots of transmitters, and therefore that means lots of towers. 15 of them this year, I think.
15 towers.
And so we have to find space where we can put them. The rules say we can put them in a 1,000-foot circle. So we look for a place which is high in elevation and which is clear. Convenient, not too far away from the local hardware store if we have a catastrophe.
That's very important for the team that it be convenient. We used to have a fabulous site, but it was extremely inconvenient.
Yeah, on the other side of the bay. We had to drive across the bridge. Took a couple hours to get there. This site is pretty far out in the an open field, but it is very close to civilization, and so a lot of the members of the clubs can get there relatively quickly. Some can even go home to sleep at night. Yeah. It's that convenient.
The families can visit.
So we looked. We've had several sites. People say, well, go to a football field. Well, they forget a football field is only 100 yards, maybe 120 yards.
Not big
That's
enough.
nowhere near big enough. We need three football fields and in a row in a straight line. So we've looked at many sites. We started out, as I said, on the Eastern Shore. A whole bunch of neighbors actually let us have their backyards overlooking the bay in a big straight line. And that was kind of amazing that they were so nice to let us do that. But after we had left that site, we've been working with the Department of Education and using school sites. And we had one school site we used for about the first third of the time, and we've been doing this. And then we lost that one when they built over the area that we were using.
Built in the school.
For the new school. So we've moved to this new site, which looks like it's going to be good for a while because it's between two schools, and it's over 1,000 foot. We use just about all the available space.
We use about 20 acres.
Wow. Frank, one of my questions is, you have 24 transmitters running. How do you keep them from interfering with each other? Like, and for the listeners, we have all these different transmitters on different frequencies, and you're sitting right beside each other, and sometimes there's interference. You might be on 40 meters, and sitting right beside you is a guy on 20 meters, and you're hearing harmonics up and down perhaps, or just interference. How do you know when you set this all up, or how do you minimize the fact that you're going to cut down on that interference? How do you do that?
Well, Bob, we use that 1,000 feet that we're allowed to use very effectively. One of the tricks from the East Coast is that most of the contacts you make by no means all, but most of them are generally to your west. The Atlantic Ocean is to our back, so when we're looking west, we're looking, of course, maybe 75% of the potential audience for us, 75% of the total QSOs. So we have all of our antennas oriented so that they're oriented towards the west. And for example, one of the worst case bands is 20 meters. We operate 4 stations simultaneously on 20 meters, a CW station that Rol operates. I sit right next to Rol, elbow to elbow on 20-meter sideband, and we never hear each other all weekend long, other than through each other's headphones. We never hear each other on the air.
Bring up slide 8, Alex. Look at this slide 8. Hey, Gordo, how you like this one? There's 2 guys sitting beside each other running full blow.
Both operating the same band. Here we are.
Look at that.
So I'm the closest one there. I'm operating 20-meter phone, and immediately to my left is Rol. He's on 20 CW. We never heard each other all weekend. Never heard a peep, other than directly through the headphones from me doing all the speaking. Rol is dead quiet operating CW.
Nor do we hear the GOTA station, nor do we hear the digital station.
I never heard the GOTA station all weekend on sideband. I never heard anything on 20-meter sideband that sounded remotely like interference, even though there were 3 other stations on the same band. So I've managed not to answer your question very well, and it is, how do we do that?
Yeah.
Well, we take advantage of the space. Those 4 20-meter antennas are end-to-end, occupying that entire 1,000-foot distance.
Your slide 5 will show some of this, I guess, and then you can explain that.
Sure.
That's a good layout. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so if you look at the extreme south end of the site, at that end of the site is our GOTA tribander. So that's on 20 meters a lot of the time. And then about 250 feet from that is the 20-meter CW 3-element monobander. And then 250 feet from that is the one I use, the 3-element monobander for 20 meters. And then at the far north end of the site is the 20-meter digital antenna. They were on PSK and traditional already. But notice, if you have access to that layout, that all 4 of those antennas are end-to-end. So the coupling between them is as small as it can be. And we never heard each other. 4 transmitters never heard each other.
That's great. That's really great. We're going to get into some of that one of these nights. I want to get into phasing and how we're able to do things and take our signals and cause them to go one direction or another just by changing where the elements are, and phasing is so important. Even gets down into microphones. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm sure that you've laid this out way before even January. So it's all about planning, as you said. That's really great. I also noted that you guys, for the past, 12 years, you've been like #1 in finishers in all of the field days. Is that correct?
Yes, we've managed to finish #1 out of the top 10 in the nation for 12 years, and this is our 13th year. We're hoping 13 will be lucky, and we'll do it again. If anybody beat us, they had to set our new record because we managed to do that this time.
Now, the record you did this year, you didn't win this thing. You blew it totally out of the water. At least that's the figures I've got. Like, I think before, what'd you have? 36,938 points this year, and like the record to beat was 19,000. There you go, Gordo. If you're going to win, you might as well run it down the hill real fast, right?
Absolutely.
That's great.
Well, the record
man.
that we have been seeking for the longest time is the record for the largest number of QSOs in a field day. And that record is 30 years old. And it was set by the Yankee Clippers contesters 30 years ago.
We know a lot of those folks, obviously.
And yeah, you look at the list of the names of the guys who operated in that thing, and it's a list of the Hall of Fame of contesting up there.
Yeah.
And they put kilowatts on all bands, which in itself is an amazing thing to get that much power. And I don't know how they kept. We'll ask them the same question. I'm in contact with those guys, and I'm trying to find the story of how they did it in some detail, so we can spread that word around. But we use 100 to 150 watts. We don't use high power, partly because of that interference problem. They had separate transmitters on phone and CW on all bands running a kilowatt, and they set that record way back in 1984. So, or 81, right,
exactly.
30 years exactly. So that's a really an amazing accomplishment, and we've had the point record for a long time because we get twice as many points when we run low power like that. But they had the overall QSO record, and we have been fighting hard to get it back, and we finally did it.
Did you do something different this year on equipment? What kind of transceivers did you use and stuff like that? Because that really plays a big part, I think, in that.
A little help there.
Yeah, we had some big help in that regard. And from you too, Bob. We were contacted during this past winter by Ray Novak from ICOM. And Ray had noticed that there's been something going on with Field Day on the East Coast and wondered if he could get involved, because Ray is, like a lot of hams, very interested in Field Day. And we said, sure, if he'd like to come on out and join the W3AO Field Day, he'd be most welcome. And then he said, well, what if I bring a few radios from ICOM? Would that be okay? Would you be willing to use some of those instead of the ones you always use? And I said, Ray, if you'd like to try some of your favorite radios, get them out here and we'll set them up and use them. So we took a little bit of a chance because we had never used these ICOM radios at Field Day before. But as I mentioned to Ray, we're quite confident in the engineering of our antenna system, so we were quite sure that with the reputation of the ICOM radios that we wouldn't have any interference at all between them. So we took them all out of the boxes just before Field Day, rolled them over to the site, hooked them up to our antennas, and presto, never heard any interference on any of those 8 ICOM radios.
Wow. And they set up very well. Of course, we had Ray there to give us a few little pointers, but generally they went together smoothly.
Oh, sure. No, trouble-free. It was great fun. And, of course, Bob offered... Ray was a little concerned. We brought all these radios out here, and we've got all these other microphone headsets of unknown heritage, whether they really work with his radios and that sort of thing. So I guess, Ray, you and Bob got together and made sure that we were well equipped with headsets, and they were absolutely trouble-free, too.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, we work with Ray very well, and I know that if you had him there, he just doesn't walk around in a 3-piece suit. He's got on jeans and a T-shirt, and he's got tools in his pocket. So we'll come and help you, and that's really great.
He
really
dove
great.
in at 2 p.m. Friday, and he was a member of the team from that point forward. He was great.
One thing before we get away from here, for everybody listening that's not a ham, here's something that really I think takes it takes a lot to do all this, and it attracts attention. And slide 10 lets you know about some of the really important attention you guys get. Of course, you have media and all that, but Rol, you had some pretty big wigs there with you, it looks like.
Yeah, we did. We start. This is another thing we have to start fairly early, is to contact these people because their time is in great demand, and we've had good cooperation over the years with people coming out to see this. So the state delegate Bates there. Gail Bates came out to see us. And not only that, she talked to me during the field day and said, you know, we need to hear what you're doing down at the State House in Annapolis. You need to come down and talk to the legislature. I'll try to set that up so that you can explain what amateur radio is about and what you guys do. And the support from the fire, Howard County Fire Chief has been great. The Firemen's Union donates money for gasoline for us, which is absolutely amazing. We never asked them. They just did that. And we have a lot of visitors from the local emergency preparedness teams.
Wow, that's wonderful. One of the other things that's so important, at least to me, is that we get the kids involved and new operators, not just youngsters. And your, let's see, I think number 10 shows some of that. We talk about this quite a bit the last few shows where we're talking about the GOTA. Get on the air. And this is a station that all field days put up, and you can come there and operate and be assisted by amateurs. It looks like you really had a great operation for that particular station this year, huh?
We sure did. And you see Rich, KE3Q, who's been, I don't know, for 6 or 7 years now, been organizing our GOTA activity at the field day. And he is, of course, one of the best contest operators in the world, and he's also really good with young people and newcomers. And so unfortunately this year, I was lining people up for him months in advance, and he never got to sleep at all, I don't think, because we had GOTA people coming in around the clock to operate.
All hours of the night.
And I think there were more than 25, and they ranged from 9, 10-year-old kids to newcomers who were a little older, and some who had been hams many years ago but hadn't been on the air for a long time and came back and got this chance to operate a radio again. And hopefully that spurs them to get back on the air and throw an antenna up in the backyard or something like that.
You got to operate modern radios with really good antennas.
And a coach beside him who can tell them exactly how to go about it.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate all of the information here. Gordon, how do you relate to some of the things they're doing? I know that you do quite an intensive thing out there, but this looks like a massive undertaking to me. What are your feelings from Costa Mesa?
Well, in looking at some of those slides, wow, what a setup. What we had to do, we were in a very smaller area, so we had to use the ICE bandpass filters. Now, did you fellas use any type of external filters beyond the great filtering system built into the ICOM rigs?
Well, Gordon, you know, we bring all these radios out to the site from the members who participate, as well as this year from ICOM. And the last thing we want to do is to run any risk of damaging these radios. So not only from the point of view of interference, but also to be sure we don't inadvertently damage a radio, we do use these W3NQN filters that you can purchase or you can build. They were described in QST some years ago. And we use those on every HF transceiver to be absolutely certain that no energy gets into those transceivers from any of the other dipoles, for example, that might be suspended from the same towers. And they do a great job. We had absolutely no damage at all to any of the equipment, nor have we ever had any damage to any of our equipment in the 12 years we've been doing this.
Wow, I think that's terrific. Well, congratulations on a great signal. We heard you on 6 meters, but you had such a pileup from the West Coast we couldn't get back to you. But what a monster signal. So congratulations from the West Coast to the East Coast. Monster signal.
Well, Gordon, we're going to have to try that again next year then.
All right, well, we'll make sure that we have a little bit more signal. We were running a lot of ICOM gear, but you know, that was my problem. I think it was another brand, and maybe that's why they couldn't exchange, huh?
We were using an ICOM 7700 on 6 meters. Fabulous radio on that band.
Actually, really bad. It should have been 12,159.
Yeah, that's right.
We left one on the table.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations, and What a station. All right, well, may your 13th be as popular and winning as your 12th and 11th and 10th and so on.
Yeah, well, this has been great, and I really appreciate both of you taking your time to spend with us and all of us here on Ham Nation tonight. And we'll have to get you back on again and get some more stories on how you broke this record. My goodness, a 30-day field day record was broken this year. That's wonderful. But next year you're going to have even more people to work because we're getting so many people that's listening to this show, watching this show, and getting their license. We've already counted about 25 that sent emails in. They've either in the past 6 to 7 weeks, they've gotten their license or they got upgraded. Some of them came back into the hobby all because of Ham Nation. And we thank Leo Laporte for giving us this bandwidth and all of the wonderful people in the chat room. And it's just been great. But it's people like you to come on here and let people know that ham radio is very exciting and all of the different facets of it. So I appreciate very much you guys coming on, and good night to you, and we'll look for you on the band. A little high, a little low, but we'll be the weak one down underneath there, right, Gordo?
Well, that's true. And Rol, thanks for all you do with a question pool committee to help come up with great current questions, of which near the end of tonight's podcast we'll be mentioning some of those questions. So we appreciate all your hard work as well, Rol.
Well, thank you, Gordon. You help us out a lot with those questions and giving us some new ones and reading the ones we write. So thank you.
Okay, guys. Well, best regards, and we'll see you on the air. Thanks very, very much for coming on to Ham Nation tonight.
Thanks, Bob.
73.
All right. So fascinating. That's great. That's great.
Man, what a setup. You bet. What a setup for 1,000 feet. What, they have 15 towers, Bob?
Something like that, yeah. It's something. It's overwhelming. I look at some of the pictures. And how do they do that?
That is terrific. Well, boy, I'm glad that they did as well on the East Coast.
Yeah, okay. Well, I got a couple of things we want to get into. Our smoke and solder's been, we only did the one last week, and it was really popular, and a lot of people we want more of that. And I thought we'd take a couple of minutes here to get into some of the things that we do when we build all this crazy stuff. And of course, you have to have the right soldering iron. And that's really important. Let me grab this guy.
Now, as he's getting the soldering iron, he said soldering iron.
You know about the soldering gun, right?
Yeah, I've got a big 325 dual, a Weller dual heat, and that's what I use for soldering the P. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, you need one of these. So if you go to a yard sale and you see some of these things, buy it. And no, you're not going to come in and solder some real fine printed circuit board stuff. Can't do that with that. But boy, when you're soldering coax connectors and big stuff like that, you need that gun. And it's a necessary tool to all ham radio operators. Now you can get some of the different tips for the little guns, but it's really best to use that big old Weller, and that's what you got, right, Gordo? You got a couple of those.
That's it. And remember, if you've got the big Weller, about every soldering job, go in there with a proper wrench and tighten up the two little screws that hold down the tip to the body, and that way you'll have a good transfer of heat, because it tends to loosen up after every job.
Talking about this right here. That's very important. You have to tighten those up, otherwise there's no transfer of heat, and it gets a little flaky. So you got to tighten those boogers up every once in a while. Take a wrench and do that. That's very important. And while you're doing that, this is another very important tool, and I'm going to get it from the chat room. I'm going to get it on emails. I'm going to say, you know what? I use this for so much. My father gave this to me. And I've had it all these years, and of course I get to think about him every time I get to use it. they're needle nose vice grips. You know what I use it for? I use it when I'm soldering. Now, I have another one on a stand, but a lot of times I can do some really cool soldering with that. Now, I'm going to bring the old camera down here. That worked pretty good last week, didn't it, Gordo, when I did that?
It was not bad. Not bad at all.
Not bad. Well, here we go. Let's see what happens here. We're going to bring this camera down here so everybody can see what we're doing here. And hopefully we'll make the whole thing happen. There we go. And what I like to do is, first of all, tin, or absolutely make sure you scrape all of the components. That's so important, because what happens, they oxidize. And so I take this resistor and I scrape the lead all the way up, because we're going to solder it up here, and I make sure that when I apply heat to that little booger, that it's going to make good conductivity. And I put it in the board where she's going to go, right there. And then on the other side, we've got nice, shiny pieces that I can solder to. Now here comes the important part. I have this wonderful little low wattage iron, and it also has to be tinned. I use and you'll find this in everybody that solders. We actually have a sponge, and we keep it all wet, and we want to tin the end of that so that it's all ready to go. Wipe that off a little bit. Now we're going to bring it over here and apply heat. Now here's the important part. You want to make sure that both of those pieces are at the same temperature. And when it is, you'll watch that solder flow. It'll flow. It'll make a very nice little pretty solder connection. A lot of people will take it and they'll just dip it like that. No, there you go. No, that's not where you go. The problem is you didn't heat that up very good, and you're going to have a cold solder joint, what we call a cold solder joint. We didn't put enough heat on. Oh, it looks really good right now, but hold it down. Look at that smoke go, Gordo. Look at that. Yeah. Hold that down real good. Now you've got a really good connection. And all of these others that I did earlier, I scraped them all. Same thing. You want to hold that until you watch that solder flow real well all around it. It has to be that way, or else you'll have a cold solder joint, and then nothing works. And you wonder, how come this don't work? And last but not least, we want to cut those leads off right at the board, and you now have a very nice solder connection. And that's the important part, is being able to have a real pretty solder connection, but you make sure that it was well heated so that the pad and the component are at the same temperature when you applied the solder. And don't just tap it on there. You hold it on there till it flows. Any comments on that, Gordo, that you can ask?
You know, I can smell the solder from here. You've got your protective glasses on. You held the iron by the proper side, and I think you're good to go. I mean, I'll count on that working.
Yeah, baby. This was a 1973 circuit board from one of our mixers that we built years ago. We even made the circuit boards in our Marissa plant. And some guy came to me at Dayton, Gordo, and he bought this empty board out in the parking lot. I couldn't believe it. He said, I knew what that was. There's some guy was on the parking lot at the Dayton Hamvention selling these empty boards. I have no idea where he got them. But, oh, well, yeah. I thought it was apropos for us to use tonight here on Ham Nation. What the heck? Yeah, we'll get the camera back up here. So we'll have to let you bring your big soldering iron in here one of these days, Gordo, and we'll get the connectors together. That a deal?
That is, we'll do a PL259, and we'll do maybe an N connector, and I'll leave for the chat room those folks that do up the little SMAs. I think they pretty much always come pre-done, so no SMAs for Gordo.
Oh, those are toughies, aren't they? Little bitty guys. Well, it's fun, and we're going to do so much more. I have to tell you that we have been in contact with a couple of guys that's what they do. They have a great bunch of videos up on YouTube and so on. They're going to start joining us and building things, and so we're very excited about that. We'll have more news about that as we start bringing more and more guests on. And again, the guests are here because you're asking for them. We've got a whole list of them. Coming in a couple of weeks is going to be my friend W3AO, who has worked, 238 countries? 238. What's that, about 100 less than all of them there are to work, right, Gordo?
Not that I would know, but I think so.
Yeah, and Terry, one of my best friends, did it with all inside antennas. He's not allowed to have an antenna. Can't even have a flagpole outside where he lives. So he put them in the attic. Let me tell you, he has done it to them, and I'm so happy to be able to have him on here. He's working on all the drawings and pictures for us that we'll be able to do that. So,
that's super. And inside the attic antennas really work on most homes. Where they don't work well is if you've got a lot of computers and central air conditioning, microprocessors, cable lines running through the attic. That's where there's a problem within the attic antennas on receive. But if you don't have a lot of stuff down below, inside the attic, I like off-center fed Windhams from Radio Waves and Radio Works. They work super. And if you have a low noise floor in the rest of your house, then they'll work great.
Yeah, I know that some of the guys are having real problems with the HOA deals, and they're trying everything, putting up flagpoles, this and that, and so on. But Terry's got the answer, and there's a lot of guys that have come up with some really neat antennas for the attic, so we'll have that coming down the line here too. One of the things that we want to show you tonight is a special picture that was taken recently of our Chief Twit. It's slide number 1. He met up with somebody. Do that again, Alex. Bring that back. That's okay. That slide is cool. That happens to be Leo sitting at the new desk of the new amateur radio station that's going to go in the new studios. And standing beside him is the president. That's Sarah Heil. And we are so thrilled about this. I had picked out a little place in the back of this new studio to try to get out of the way of everybody. No, Leo says we're going to have it at the front door, and that's exactly where this is. So everybody coming to visit the Twit Studios, when it all gets put together in August, it'll be ready to kick off, is going to see this fabulous ham radio station. There's some more of the station, of the Twit Studios. They were standing right in the right by that window over on the left. But for all of you just listening, these are the fabulous pictures of this studio that's just outrageous. We were there again last week and got to pick out a spot, and we're going to go put this in. We're very excited with going to have just an outrageous ICOM station, and it's going to be really cool. Big monitors, none of this little stuff. You won't need your big glasses, Gordo, to see what frequency you're on. Let me tell you. Ray's got it fixed. He's got it all fixed up, man, and we're very excited about that. But I have some more pictures, too, that we want to bring in our special section here called Show Us Your Shack. I guess Leo showed us his shack before his shack was a shack, but that's where it's going to be, and we're very happy about that. And if Alex can find some of the other slides, we got... who's that guy? Who is that guy on the left, Gordo? That looks like the Chief Twit.
Yeah. Good-looking hat.
A cowboy hat. But who's that beside him? That's none other than Charlie Daniels.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh. Charlie played in Petaluma a week or so ago, and the whole almost the whole team got to go enjoy a Charlie Daniels concert. And, of course, all the microphones were built by a amateur radio company, but that's another story for another day. But he's been using Heil microphones for about 2 or 3 years now. Kicked out all these old stuff. We're very honored to have Charlie using our stuff. So Leo got to meet the man, and I don't know. I didn't hear, Gordo, if he gave him any fiddle lessons. That's the one thing I didn't know. So, well, that's great. Let's see. If you've got some other pictures there, Alex, we've got pictures of W3AO, and those shack pictures are really great. And when's the last time you were there, Gordon?
Oh, I was at the American Radio Relay League about 10 years ago. Dave Sumner gave me a guided tour, and it was terrific. I had a great time, and they offer regular tours. Just check the pages at QST, and they'll give you the times and who to contact ahead of time if you want to. But they'll also take drop-ins, and what a treat to be able to operate at the W3AO official station on the air.
Yeah, we got slide 3 there that shows that, and it's, oh man, they just have such a great station. And any of you that get to Newington, Connecticut, you want to stop by 225 Main and spend the day there. You'll love what's going on at W3AO. And you can operate if you have a license. You'll be able to sit right there. And does it get any better than that station? Boy, it's really incredible. And they have a VHF and satellite station in another studio, and that is also an incredible thing. And they've got just about every kind of radio you would want. And we're very, very honored to have these pictures tonight from Joe Garcia of W3AO. And before we close out in those pictures, I got a picture from KE0VH. Jack is a broadcast engineer in Colorado, and he's very much into ham radio. Look at that, Gordo.
Look at that. Holy
you can see a broadcast engineer did this. Look at his mixer. It's right out of. I hope his radio station isn't missing a mixer, because it's probably a Jack station. That's great, and we're very happy to have him help us. He puts Ham Nation up on the SBE network every once in a while. So Jack, thanks a lot. And all you others, we have a ton of pictures, and we'll be bringing them now week after week. So send them in. You see. Our emails at the bottom, both Gordon and I, and send your pictures along, your wants, your needs, and so on. And we're going to be able to bring you some neat stuff here on Ham Nation. Gordo, you got some new gear. What about the speakers that you were talking about?
I do. We recently did some testing during both field day as well as here at the shack. And what these are DSP amplified speakers. And here at this shack, this is what allowed us to hear the Hawaiian beacon long before anyone else on the West Coast could pick out the dits and daws coming through the background noise. This one's made by West Mountain Radio, is amplified up to about 10 watts, and has variable DSP, and it just hooks right to the audio output of your transceiver. Now, I don't recommend both your transceiver's DSP plus the speaker, but if you, like me, have an older radio, as you see here behind me, without exotic DSP, audio DSP is a great way to get rid of a lot of just the background hash while waiting for the beacon to come in. Now, this one is from Graham at BHI in England. He sells these through Gap as well as W4RT. And this is another version of the amplified DSP speaker, where on the top you have a push button to calculate in the amount of DSP noise subtraction that you want. These worked out very well here at the shack. They worked out well in my very noisy dune buggy mobile. They were not the best choice, though, for field day because we were not as fortunate as our guests earlier, Frank and Rol. We were in real close, and we found that for field day, some of the strong transmitting antennas nearby would get into the DSP speakers. We added some filters, and that made a difference. But let me tell you, for the home shack or for the mobile, if you have an older rig without DSP, and yes, I'd love to have one of Ray's rigs with DSP and the IF, DSP add-on speakers for a couple $100 from either West Mountain Radio or from Gap, the BHI speaker, they really do a nice job, especially as I was early this morning monitoring 144.170 for the Hawaiian beacon, and bango, I heard it first with DSP. I turned off DSP and you couldn't even hear the beacon coming through. And next week when we talk about propagation as our subject number 3 and test preparation, we'll actually play you DSP on and DSP off with these two relatively new design DSP speakers. Bob, back to you.
Well, that digital processing really works in the speakers. And there's no doubt when you couple it with some of the new filters that are in these radios today, you can do things with the audio, not just the filters, but you can do it with the audio. It's amazing. And you need everything you can pull out of the sky sometimes with a lot of noise and conditions where you get static, QRN. It really helps to have the DSP that will help you get rid of all that. And those are two great tools to be able to pull all that wanted audio out of the unwanted. So that's terrific. You have a recording of some of the stuff that you worked earlier today from across the waters. Have you got some of that, Gordo?
Oh, I do, and you heard it at the very beginning, and I'm going to play a little bit more next week, and you'll actually be able to hear DSP on and DSP off. And I'll wait till we get to our quick review of operating procedures, which is our second test preparation area we're going to study tonight, and I've got a recording that is quite interesting. Back to you, Bob.
Okay, super duper. Well, that brings up the whole title of what we want to do, and each week we'll bring you a little bit of lessons and a little bit of guidance into getting your license. We get so many requests. How do I get my license? Where does it start? And the ultimate teacher is here with us. And Gordon, why don't you give us a few pointers as to what we need to do to get closer to having an amateur radio license?
Okay, well, we talked about rules and regulations, of which for technician class there are 6 questions out of 35 on your upcoming test. If you're upgrading to general, 5 questions on rules and regs. Extra class has 6 questions. Now let's try you out. What does the FCC encourage you to do for proper identification using phone? And the answer is for technician, that's right, the phonetic alphabet. Now, general rules and regulations might say, how many kilohertz separation to get yourself away from an ongoing communications? The answer is, that's right, 3 kilohertz. And finally, for extra class rules and regulations, how many volunteer examiners to make up a VE team to test applicants for their examination upgrade or a new license? The answer is not 1, not 2, but that's right, 3. And the extra class question also says, when you conduct the test, how do you grade it? And do you have to grade it right on the spot? And the answer is, for those of you ready to sit for a test, yes, your answer sheet will be graded right on the spot. They'll tell you how well you did. Now, operating procedures is our second area that you want to begin studying for in preparation for your new license or your upgrade. And you know, on the air, you take a little bit of listening and listen to these operating procedures that are pretty darn good from the National Hurricane Center.
We are transferring information to the National Hurricane Center, and that helps the forecasters to predict landfall and tracking of the hurricane. Okay,
So you see that ham radio plays very important in disaster preparation, a very important role. And the National Hurricane Center works very closely with ham operators. All right, now, a technician question for operating procedures would say, how do you call another station on the air? That's an easy one. Give their call sign, followed by your call sign. Incorrect answers would be calling CQ or saying break, 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 or something like that. Now, for those of you going for general class, try this one out. Operating procedures, you've got 6 questions out of 35. It might say for general class, where on the 20-meter band would you find PSK and other data? And the answer is where? 20 meters, 14.070 up to 14.1. And finally, extra class, when transmitting PSK 31, what's the most important transmitter setting on your radio dial? SWR? No. Current from the grid? Nope. Power output? Nope. In setting levels for PSK, extra class test question, ALC. So operating procedures is your second installment that we covered tonight. You need to read that over in your booklet, listen to it on audio CDs, and you'll be ready to go on to next week, propagation. And Bob, that's where we'll play some of the exciting sounds of the Hawaiian beacon. In fact, I'll toss it back to you, Bob, and I'll try and tune the beacon in now. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, very good, very good. Those are, you see, those questions are easy. You can learn those, and they're in the manuals. And I can only tell you to get with that, study it a little bit, and you'll be there. Trust me, you will be there. It's not that difficult. And one thing you talked about, Gordo, was ALC. It's another one of those, what does that mean? It's automatic limiting circuit. And there's a meter on every transmitter that shows us. And it's almost like a VU meter. In fact, I always think of it as, and that's how I set my mic gain. I don't want to be in the red. You'll notice a little meter up behind me. Wait a minute, if I get in the right place here. You'll see that Duro meter up behind me. Mike Duro builds a great piece for the broadcast industry. That's a well-calibrated digital meter. And that's really how you can set mic gain if you have one of those. But actually, you can do it with every transmitter, no matter what it costs, no matter how big it is, how serious it is. They all have ALC, because that's the most important. If you're overdriving your ALC, you're going to be putting out all kinds of spurious responses and harmonics, and you're going to be making noise you're not supposed to be making. So let's see, you got things tuned up yet, Gordo?
Oh, yeah. Listen to this. This is the Hawaiian beacon right now coming into the West Coast from Paul, KH6HME. And hear that rip? That's a little warble in the beacon. That lets us know for sure it's coming from Hawaii. But 2,500 miles away on the 2-meter band. Next week, we'll let you listen to what it sounds like on 432. But this, Bob, is tropospheric ducting at its best.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, while you're doing that, I'm listening over here to 6 meters. It's just about to close down. Come on here, dude.
Oh, yeah, 6 has been hot today.
It's been open all day. And these guys are just going crazy. 6 meters is a wonderful band, and I have an ICOM 7800 that stays on 6 meters. I just keep one of the receivers right there, and it's wonderful to be able to have such a great piece of gear. There's actually 2 two pieces of gear here in one box, and one I do all my other stuff on 75 or 40 or whatever. But the second receiver stays on 6 meters, and so I know when the band's opening usually. And it's been kind of lax here for a number of months, but oh boy, it woke up big time. You know what I think woke it up? I should have asked him about. I think that W3AO thing, I think that really woke up 6 meters. What do you think, Gordo?
I agree. I think they got the E layer, the F1 and the F2 layer, and many other layers we don't even know about charged up big time with that superstation on the East Coast.
Well, they had 24 ICOM radios. What else you want?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know. They want a bunch of PWs, amplifiers on the end of them, but we can't. We don't want to do that for field day. You got to do it barefoot. We can't.
No, if you lose points, you run amplifiers over 150 watts, and you go down to a one-time multiplier rather than 2 times for 150 or less.
That's right. So it depends on what you want to do with it. Oh, that's all too much fun. By the way, I'm going to answer a couple of questions from last week. The chat room had asked. One of the things, there was several people, Gordon, that talked about how many transistors were in a 555.
Oh, yeah.
And, most of them were 20 transistors. There were a couple that had 24, but I think the 20 is the right, but we're not going to argue with him. It certainly isn't 2 or 3. It's 20 or 25, whatever. And so that's what was in the 555. And one of them asked, okay, I know a guy's call. How can I find out who it is? That's real simple. You take your computer and you go to QRZ.com. QRZ.com. And up in the upper corner of the site menu, type in their call, and it'll give you more than maybe you wanted to know about them. You can find out when, how long, what license class. You can find out all kinds of stuff. Yeah, put in K9 EID, or let's see what happens here.
Wow.
And
I know
there
that.
it is. Oh, there we go. Oh, you got to log into that now, don't you? Yeah, that's right. You got to log in. Yeah, that's no problem. By the way, that little ad you saw come up down there had nothing to do with our company putting it there. That was by Gigaparts down in Atlanta area, or Huntsville. What am I talking about? And they do a lot of advertising, as do R&L and HRO and AES. They run advertisements. That's how they keep that all going. But QRZ.com is the place to go. And while you're there, put in the call K3LR. Now, look at this. This is from my page. See, I told you, you're going to learn more than you really wanted to know.
Good looking.
That was a picture taken when we were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're the only manufacturer in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame from all of my early days back in the 60s and 70s, all because of ham radio. It's where I learned to do all that stuff, and it got me in the Rock Hall. And it was kind of interesting, Gordon, when they called in and came out here and talked about it. I said, you can do this, but you got to do one thing. When you put up all the things about how old I am, where I came from, da-dee-da, you must put on there that I learned my trade from amateur radio, and they did. So I guess you can say in one part, amateur radio's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I'm very humbled, incredibly blessed by that. Very honorable to be there. And it's in this same on the same floor right beside Les Paul's room. How cool is that? So we're just having a good time, still building and playing and making that solder go. So we're getting close to the end here. Anything else that you have there, Gordon, that we need to let everybody know about?
The most popular question of the week is, what 2-meter 440 handheld should I buy? And you know, they're all good. Each one has their own type of features, but what I always recommend is get it from a dealer that may spend a couple moments with you, either computer programming local channels for your area if you're brand new, or we'll take a few moments to show you how to program in a couple of channels, or get that handheld, maybe mail order, and then work it with a local club member to learn how to do programming. But get someone to help you, because as a brand new ham, even though you may have the world's best handheld, if it's not been pre-programmed by a pal or the ham radio dealer, as they do here in Southern California. HRO takes good care of their personnel, as they do in all their stores, and we'll give them a couple of channels to get them started, and that really gets that brand new ham on the air with either a pre-programmed or local clubs that will help them get that new handheld cooking.
That's really probably some of the best advice you can have for all of your gear. Make sure you have somebody to help you, an Elmer, as we call them, or in the case of buying gear, make sure it's a store that can help you, and that's very important. The manufacturers have great support also, but boy, there's nothing like being there where they can take you through it live. And then once you see it, you can do it. It's not impossible. My goodness, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I got a question here for somebody. I want to know, what happened to your PR40? Well, it's up here with all these other things. This is a new HM12 that we built for podcasting and amateur radio. It's a very cool microphone that we came up with, a very special element and a look about it, and we're very excited about it. So HM12 is what we're talking into tonight, and it's just the best for podcasts. We've got to get rid of all these condensers and these stupid USB things. No, you can't do that, because then you sound like this, and it's like, what happened to my audio? I am all echoey. We're going to get into that one of these days. We're going to get into some audio. Get your headphones on when we do, because we're all going to learn. I always learn a lot, too, when I do it. And tomorrow night, all of you, amateur radio operators, licensed, unlicensed, try to get to a receiver, an AM receiver, and dial up 3.880, 3880 as we call it, on 75 meters. Because at 8 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Mountain, and 8 o'clock Pacific, we just went right across the United States, is the Collins AM net. You are going to hear some of the most incredible signals you've ever heard. Some of these transmitters are old broadcast stations. Some of them are little Heath kits we built years ago. You're going to hear that rack back there behind me on, and I'll be on with my Harvey Wells from 1956. It's still working up on the top there. And, this is fun stuff. It happens the first Wednesday of every month on 3880. 3.880 AM. And every once in a while, when Joe Walsh is home, he runs the net on the West Coast. So you want to tune in. You're going to hear a lot of great signals. And what happens is it starts at 8 o'clock Eastern, and it just moves across the country. And each time zone gets an hour. It also lets us talk about propagation, Gordon, because if I'm in the Midwest and things are really good on 75, I can work Mike Thoreau and the guys out on the West Coast. That's really cool, isn't it, to be able to do that?
That is great. Now, remember, a week from today, not tomorrow, a week from today, propagation. That's your third topic to start studying, propagation.
Propagation, that's a goodie. You got that right. Well, I can't tell you how much fun this is. I appreciate all of you listening, tuning in, so on. And next week, as I told you a while ago, I'll give you a little homework. If you wrote it down, you want to look up K3LR. This guy, Tim Duffy, has $1 million plus. It's probably $2 million contest station. This guy is something, and we're very honored to have him. He's got just 1 week of time that we can catch him, and he's going to be here next week. Tim Duffy. Don't miss it. It's fascinating. You're going to hear how he wins all these contests, and we're really excited to have him. And go look up his thing on QRZ.com, K3LR, and he's got his websites and all that, and you can kind of get a little preface of what we're going to talk about. I got to get back to 6 meters. I just worked KN4NN a while ago. John's down in Crawfordville, Florida, and 6 is still open. So, Gordon, I'm not even going to hang around on Skype with you because 6 meters is open. You know how that goes, right? What are you doing? He's already on 6 meters. So that's enough of that one, huh? Yes, we're having a lot of fun. We want you to join us. We want you to join us every week here on Ham Nation. We want you to join us on 75. I'm going to be on 3875 after a while if 6 meters ever shuts up, and it will here soon. But I'll be there, 3875. I'll be around 3850. That's where I hang out on 75. Wind conditions are good and not noisy and storming and all that. Thanks very much to everybody. The chat room, you guys are great. We'll get to more of your questions and be able to get things rocking. And it was really great to have the W3AO, the 30-year field day record holders with us. Rol and Frank are just choice people, and we appreciate that. So my ICOM is calling. So Gordo, we'll see you next week here on Ham Nation. You and Susie have a great week, and hopefully the bands will be open. We'll talk to you all then. From, I guess, all we can say is Southern Illinois. I can say best wishes are 73 from K9EID, Bob Heil.